All right. Again, coaches, thank you very much for jumping in on this on this discussion, taking time out of your week, out of your evening to join us for this conversation. As we mentioned at the beginning, I'm super excited to kind of share this, not necessarily as a point counterpoint, but maybe a point and point and kind of complement to the tactical, tactical side of coaching in your coaching sessions. So just hopefully, my goal is that you can kind of take away and maybe a little extra thought or some extra input on how you're framing your training sessions in order to, as we say, incorporate the S&C and really get kind of, as as someone jokingly says, feed two birds with one scone, so to speak. So the big question that's always it gets asked is why. What's the point? Why is this important? And as was mentioned earlier in the discussion, that the game itself is the biggest teacher. And from a strength conditioning perspective, the game can be and is also the best conditioner. Only so many sprints or so many shuttle runs are going to really fully prepare you for the actual game, for the stop start, the pace and the quick transitions of the game. So the more that we can structure our training sessions around that, the more transferable, the more applicable that conditioning is going to be. As a strength coach, one of the things that I always say is, you can be the strongest lifter in the gym, the highest bench press, the heaviest squat, but if you don't know how to translate that strength onto the field, right, and apply it in a game situation without a bench behind you, without spotters and all those things, all that extra strength is useless. And the same goes for our conditioning as well. So the more that we can structure the training session to benefit the conditioning, right, the more applicable and the smoother transition it's going to be for the athletes and for the team. All right, so a couple of key training targets that I'm just 4 main points that I'm going to emphasize is speed, repeat speed, all right, kind of work intensity or work capacity, as I put it sometimes, and then kind of our longer duration aerobic or quote unquote cardio work. All right, so getting into the first one, right, the speed component. All right, this is, being able, as was mentioned earlier, just giving max effort on your sprint. Okay, running at top speed, kind of a 100-yard dash sort of effort. Now, not to get too scientific here, but this is going to be working at alactic, right? So without lactic acid building up in the bloodstream in the system, right? What that looks like from a coaching perspective is we're gonna kind of condense those efforts to below 30 seconds. Now, most sprint competitions or sprint efforts are going to be even less than that, right? They're going to be less than 10 seconds. But in terms of, transfer into rugby, the phases that are less than 30 seconds, you might only get one sprint effort in there. And in this case, with a kick chase, kick sprint, as some like to refer to it, right? You build up your set piece, whether it's scrum, line out, your breakdown, you get one kick, boom, everyone gives one sprint effort, and that's it, you're done. Okay, which again, that whole sequence is going to take less than 30 seconds. So a good example of that might be that your chasers, your bullets, whatever terminology you use for them, maybe they get 40 meters, right? They do a 40-meter sprint. So if it's an exit from the 22-meter line, for example, right, your chasers might sprint to, let's say, midfield. Maybe you extend it out and they go to the opposite 10. Okay, maybe your wall defense, that second wave, maybe they sprint 10 meters short, so they go to the near 10-meter line or maybe the midfield line if the chasers go beyond that. And then your cover defense, maybe they get a 20-yard sprint behind that. Okay, so now we're starting to incorporate some speed efforts and speed training into our bigger rugby picture. All right, And the great, you can gamify it. You can make it a race between, okay, 14, 13, 15, or whoever it is, you're racing to the midfield line. Everyone else, your back row, your remaining centers, boom, it's a race to that near 10-meter line or so, something along those lines. And then once they get there, right, they freeze. Now you as a coach get to check their spacing. So it's a way that you can incorporate your tactical coaching into your conditioning piece. All right. For the repeat speed, right, that's going to extend out just a little more. So now you're clearly going to 30, maybe 45 seconds. Okay. And what we're looking for here is one sprint effort turn and one sprint effort back. Okay. Or a return effort. Okay. So what this looks like in gameplay, again, you set up your initial kick, right? Your entire squad chases down. Maybe you have one phase, and then the receiving team kicks back, right? So now everyone gets their return sprint or their repeat effort, and then boom, you stop, you blow it there. Okay. For the work capacity, this is going to extend out a little bit more. So now, everybody talks about lactic acid and lactic buildup and the burn, so to speak. So that's where this really comes in. Okay, timing wise, we're starting to get into that 1 minute, maybe 90-second mark, to where you're getting multiple high intensity efforts. Not necessarily max sprint effort, but definitely some high intensity. Maybe a few more accelerations off the line, something along those lines. All right, what this might look like is an initial exit. Right, everyone chases down. Let's say that team kicks back, and then maybe the parameter that you as the coach put on it is, okay, we continue to play from here. Each side gets a kick, and then we just play phases, something along those lines. All right, and then how that differs a little bit, okay, is for the aerobic, for the longer endurance. Okay, this might be used more for a flush. Maybe it's just an all-out conditioning session, right? Rather than getting on the line and running shuttle after shuttle after shuttle or laps around the field, they're not getting ball in hand. And as we said earlier, we already declared that the game is the best teacher. So anything that we're doing outside of that is taking away from that opportunity for them to develop that conditioning component within the rugby and the skill component. All right, the more that we can overlap those circles a bit, the better off it's going to be, not just for the individual athletes, but also for the whole team. Now these sessions these segments are going to extend beyond 90 seconds, right? In some instances, you might be familiar with the term worst case scenario, WCS, which is, that's kind of referring to what is the ultimate, ball in play or max time that we could potentially see. I know at the college level, that we might have 3 instances to where ball in play extends to 2 minutes. And I know in one particular instance of one game, there was a segment of ball in play that extended right at 3 minutes, and that was it. Okay, so those would be the segments that we want players to get to, right? So they've been there before, they're comfortable with it, they're starting to build that aerobic capacity, not just in their physical performance, but in their skill performance, in their decision making, and their focus as well, being locked in on the opposition and being able to read the opportunities. Right, something that you can do here, just to kind of play around with the activity is maybe you put a 2-phase max on it. Hey, each side you get 2 phases to break the line, right? To break into, maybe it's the opposite opposing territory, something like that. By the second phase, if you haven't done that, boom, you have to turn over, you have to exit, you have to clear or kick. Okay, and then of course that can be repeated, for the set amount of time, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it is that you set it out to do. Okay. some of the key factors that are important to this that really help maximize the efficiency and the quality that you as a coach and of course the players are going to get out of this is, first and foremost, have your ball boys ready and on point. There's nothing worse than having the flow, having the momentum of play, of action, and then the ball goes into touch and everyone plays the waiting game. Who's going to go get it? Where do we start? And how long are we waiting? And let's say if you have a 1 minute play segment, if you spend 10 to 15 seconds of that waiting for a ball to restart, well, at that point you're starting to lose the effect, the conditioning effect that you're trying to get out of it. All right. Adjust your boundaries a little bit. All right. And in some cases, maybe you widen the field, give the players more space, right? That way your kickers have more opportunities to kind of put the ball in behind the opposition and put pressure on them. Or maybe you want to shrink the width of the field a little bit, right? Give them less chance to break the line and force that kick chase. So now you're getting multiple reps of that kick chase or that kick receipt situation. And then be diligent with your time. All right, know and understand that, hey, if I say it's a minute and a half but I keep cutting it off at 45 seconds because we drop a ball, somebody's offsides or whatever, just know that I'm taking away from that conditioning component. The same way that I might be if I call the players over early for a team huddle or in practice early, I'm taking away from the scrum coach's opportunity to tighten up the scrum. If you're doing that in this situation, you're also taking away from the strength coach's opportunity or from the player's opportunity to work on their conditioning, okay, or to improve their fitness. So again, I'm not saying that coaches or head coaches need to be strength conditioning experts. By all means, I always invite coaches to reach out to me. Use the strength coach that you have, maybe at your school, down the road in your community, something like that. But just know that how you manage that time or how you structure that time is going to result in a different conditioning component. All right. And if week after week you're saying, well, the players aren't fit enough and the players aren't conditioned enough, well, let's look back at your training, at your training structure, at your training, kind of outline, and see if maybe there's a way that you can coordinate more conditioning into the actual training plan, right? Training activities, right? So I mentioned being open to anyone reaching out, and I do genuinely mean that. So whether you want to follow me on social media, send me an email address. I'm always open to chat and share ideas and resources, even some GPS numbers that I've recorded and I've observed in different sessions and working with different models. Happy to chat with coaches about that. Also, the YouTube channel to where I'm posting up regular tips, strategies, and techniques that not just athletes can use in the weight room, but also might be relevant to coaches as well. And then, of course, lastly, I have an email that goes out weekly that shares different ideas and suggestions on what I call our 4 pillars of performance. That really kind of breaks down a little bit more into our high performance habits, but also shares some hopefully helpful tips on how athletes and coaches can consider the things that they put in and around their training sessions to be able to get the most out of them, and of course ultimately maximize their performance. So with that, we'll open it back up, and if anybody has any other questions, then feel free to fire